Good morning. This is WKDU, the free sound in Philadelphia, beginning its broadcast day. WKDU operates on an assigned frequency of 91.7 megahertz under authority granted by the Federal Communications Commission. Studios are located at 3210 Chestnut Street, while transmitter site is at Pelton and Spangler Streets, also in Philadelphia. WKDU is owned and operated by Drexel University. We hope you will enjoy our programming.
Me. Okay. Hi. For those of you that are just tuning in, welcome. This is a special Broadcast Pioneers presentation celebrating 50 years of WKDU, the Drexel University radio station, which went on the air in 1971. And I'm Jay Myers, member of the Broadcast Pioneers, and we have a number of guests with us, and they're all alumni of Drexel, and everybody on this call was at Drexel in the time either immediately preceding WKDU coming on the air, and then or for the first 4 or 5 years of the station in its infancy. And we're just going to talk a little bit about how the station came about, and what we did at the beginning, and maybe some of the fun things that happened during that time. Very proud that the broadcast pioneer leader, Bill Galhouse, is an alumnus and part of that crew from that era. So he's not only putting this whole thing together for us, but he'll be participating with his own memories, assuming that some are still up there in your brain, Bill. We'll hope. Anyway, just across the screen and just kind of just introduce everybody that's our panelist. Bill Galhouse, as you know, from the Broadcast Pioneers. Alan Daroff. Alan is part of the crew that was there before WKDU came on the air and was working to get the station's license. Next person on my screen anyway is Alex Krauso. Alex came into school in 1971, and so he experienced FM fully for his entire time there. Paul Keller, also part of that crew. Same era as Alex. Tony Trifoletti, part of the crew from Alan Daroff's era, and Eric Adressin. Eric, you even predate maybe Tony and Alan, maybe by a year or two, if I have my memory correct, but my memory is not all that good. But and then Bruce Wallach, who's also came in with Alex Krauso and that crew. Bruce was kind of my sidekick when I was program director, and Bruce and I had really interesting adventures as a program director. And I think just a little sidelight, our favorite story ever is that Bruce and I used to periodically go up to New York to go visit record people on the Metro line one day, and it was really busy, so we had to stand. Bruce at that time, you may not believe this, had hair that went basically down to his waist. And we're standing in the line, and someone wanted to get past us, and they tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Excuse me, miss, may I go past you?" So just a little levity. So I want to start with Eric and Tony and Alan to talk about the era before. Just so that everybody knows what a lot of things for us. Obviously, we're Drexel graduates, so this is a special station to us, but it's actually a special station in broadcast history, because when there were no frequencies at that time available in Philadelphia for new radio stations, but there was a technical institute called the Philadelphia Wireless Technical Institute that broadcast on the 91.7 frequency as WPWT, but only during their business day. And their business day was 2 p.m. in the afternoon till 9:55 p.m. at night. So essentially, and then Monday through Friday. So essentially they used the frequency for less than 40 hours a day. And the application for Drexel was to share time on that frequency. That was a landmark FCC decision. It happened, we got ours on the same day that the same thing happened in Washington, D.C. for Howard University. So it was a landmark decision. I thought maybe I'd turn it over to whoever wants to speak, Eric, Tony, Alan, you guys maybe knock around and tell us about how that period of going and getting the frequency. And before you guys start talking, I want to let you know that we've always affectionately referred to your crew as Moses, because you basically got to the promised land, but you had to graduate and weren't allowed to cross the river. So
yeah, largely true, Jay. 2 days after we went on the air, I went into the Army, left the East Coast, and that was pretty much it. The story actually began in the mid-'60s when we applied. And unfortunately, the state of Pennsylvania said, we want to have a study about putting together a Pennsylvania FM educational network, sort of a forerunner of NPR. And they asked the FCC to put a hold on all Pennsylvania licenses until a study could be done. That study was not done until 1970 or 71. The problem with the study was they wanted the FCC to create a special Class F type station unique to the state of Pennsylvania. And the study did not take into consideration the fact that radio waves cross state lines. So there was going to be interference with Maryland, New York, and just about everybody else. The study, I believe, went into the circular file when it was finally done. The embargo was lifted, and we were able to get our license. WXDT, as a carrier current operation, didn't take all that much money to operate. FM was going to be a different story. And when I presented the university with what was going to be the bill for running an FM station, their first thought was, maybe we should just withdraw our application. That might be the prudent thing to do financially. And I had to fight them on that. Eventually, we won. We went live, we went on the air, and I actually got, a 2-hour air shift before I went away to go into the Army. Alan, you want to add, Eric, you want to add some more to that?
Yeah, when we were WXDT, we had decided that we wanted to have an FM license. So I sat down and actually, since electrical engineer, I actually filled the application out completely, took it to our friends at WPVI or WFIL in those days. They're engineering people, and they went through the application and they actually helped us file the application.
Alan?
Okay. Alan?
Actually, there's not a lot that I can add, because basically Eric and Tony did a lot of the application work. I know that originally the plan was to put an antenna at the site of that hotel at 39th and Chestnut, where I think forget what radio station, they had 2 antennas up there and they were only using one, but then it turned out that the structure wasn't good, so we ended up moving the antenna to the girls' dorm. And one of our guys, Steve Finberg, actually made arrangements. If you remember, we used to have traffic reports by helicopter, and he made arrangements with the traffic company to ride in the helicopter during the afternoon travel time to take the aerial photos that were needed for the application.
Very interesting. I know I said I didn't want to get into any of the old stuff before WKD, but there, at least I was told, and for those of you guys that were before me, love for you to either confirm or deny this story, but there was always an urban legend around the station that at one point, before it was even WXDT, when it was WMAX,
Correct.
they had cheated a little bit on the whole carrier current thing, and somehow were broadcasting over the air and got shut down when a private airplane almost tried to land on Chestnut Street.
The girls' dorm.
Any truth to that?
The transmitter at the girls' dorm was connected up to the grid on the roof, and it actually had them homing in on the girls' dorm.
That would have been a bit of an issue. So, so then what ended up happening is we got the license. These guys graduated. We said goodbye.
Yeah.
But then what as I said, we got the license in February, but we weren't going to go on the air until September. And so we spent a good portion of the summer doing a number of things, like rebuilding our control room facility. The interesting thing was it was a group of students that actually constructed the transmitter site on top of the girls' dorm. I remember Ray Carter, Dan Hoffer, other folks that were involved in doing that. These days, if you were going to do something like that, you might have looked at hiring some kind of a crew to do it, but we didn't have the money to hire a crew, and the university wasn't going to give us the money. So it was a group of students that spent the summer actually putting up that tower and putting things up on the dorm. The next thing we had to do is decide what to do about call letters. And so what was interesting about then WXDT and the eventual WKDU, which is a lot different than it is today and has been for maybe the past 20 or 30 years. I don't know, anybody who pays attention to the station, follows the station, anything like that, know that the station is known now as a new music station. It pretty much, it sort of has a format just like all other radio stations. We didn't have that. We were really, truly, fully student run, still is today, but we were run for the students. So the closest thing we had to a format was based on whatever it is that you wanted to do with your show. You would fill into certain time slots. So I just remember the beginning of WKDU. So if you were really into progressive rock, your time slots were usually like 10 at night till 6 or 7 the next morning. I was a top 40 jock. Saturday was top 40. During my time there as program director, we actually started what I think still exists today, which was the Black Experience. The Black Experience, obviously an urban-oriented format, would start at 10 o'clock on Saturday night, run all day through Sunday. We had a guy there, I can't remember his name. I could picture his face. He was a little bit goofy, but he liked MOR music. And so there was a time slot available for him at 10 o'clock in the morning during a weekday. I know we had a couple of people that liked jazz. They did jazz. So so we were, that's what the station was all about. So we were going to go and choose new call letters, and obviously one of the things that had happened during roughly the same time, really 1969, was Drexel Institute of Technology, which is where WXDT came from, became Drexel University. And so obviously we were going to be DU. So then the question is, what were we going to be? And we, back then things were different. So right now, if I want to change call letters, I just go online, do an FCC search, call letters are available, and then I just send a note into the FCC, hey, beginning this time, this date, I'm taking those call letters. That's the way it works today. Back then, you had to choose 4 sets of call letters that you were willing to use, put them in order of your preference. Then you made an application to the FCC. With that application, you had to notify every single radio station within a certain, I think it was a 30-mile radius of your location. You had to notify every single radio station within that 30 miles of your intent to use this series of call letters, and any one of them would have objected, and you would not have gotten that set of call letters. So I was a top 40 jock. So the most important thing for me was enunciation. And so WKDU, because the K and the D were distinctive, went to the top of the list. I remember 3 of the 4. The one was WNDU, third one I think was WSDU, and I honestly don't remember what the 4th
I
was.
do remember that one, Jay. It was WRDU.
Okay, thank you, Tony. RDU. So Well, we sent it in, and we then sweated the next 60 days, waiting to hear from the FCC because there was a WKDN in Camden, New Jersey, that we were positive was going to object to our use of those set of call letters, and they didn't. And so WKDU was born. Anybody can jump in at any time. This is no dialogue. And so we were granted our call letters, we built the station, and then we went on the air. We were 10 watts. The station is more powerful today. I don't remember what the wattage is today. It went from 10 watts to 100 watts at some point, and then I think it may be up to 3 or 6 kilowatts now because the FCC has minimums. But we went on the air.
They're full time now, aren't they?
They are. WPWT at some point in the last 30 years went out of business. I don't know if anybody on this call has any recollection of when they did, but when they did, obviously Drexel just filed for the full-time frequency, and now that frequency totally belongs to the university, which is great. But went on the air at 9:55. A bunch of us were in the studio. I actually don't remember who did the actual first show on the air, because the only thing I know is I stayed for about 15 minutes, and then I went drove up to my broadcast partner for sports, Nolan Kaplan, drove up to his house, and we spent the night there, and then we drove to East Orange, New Jersey the next day to broadcast the first Drexel sporting event that could actually be heard outside of the dorm. We broadcast the Drexel versus Uppsala football game from East Orange, New Jersey on that time. So that's kind of like a little bit about the beginnings. I wondered if Bill, Alex, Paul, Bruce, et cetera, might jump in, and you guys, a number of you came in 71. Tell us about your experience of discovering the radio station and becoming involved, and what you remember.
I'll jump in, Jay, if I could. I came in 70, just a year before that. So I was there in the WXDT time, at least for part of it. And when we were able to finally get the license to go on, was all in the first week. My shift I had probably for the whole 5 years or 4 years after that was 10 at night to 2 in the morning. So we had to get some type of FCC license, so we were able to operate the transmitter. I forget which commercial license we had to get. Got that because usually at that time of the night there was nobody else in the station, so we would have to turn the transmitter on remotely, and wait for WPWT to go off. Wait about 30 seconds, and then turn the transmitter on and go on the air as WKDU. So I was there for that transition for the next 4 years, and that was through Tuesday and Thursday nights I had from 10 at night to 2 in the morning. So I was able to see the transition and did the training and all on the AM side at WXDT. So it was a very interesting time when we finally got the FM license, and even with the low wattage. But it was a fun time.
It's awesome.
We all had to get the third-class radio telephone license. That's what we needed for that.
Yes, that's
You're
right.
right. You're right, Bruce. I forgot what it was, but we had to go sit for a test and take a test and get this license so we could turn the transmitter switch on.
Right. Elements 1, 2, and 9, 2nd and Chestnut at the Customs Building, right? That's where you had to.
You're right. Wow. It's a great memory, huh? So yeah, we had the license and thought we were hot stuff because we could operate, not only be on the air, but operate the transmitter. I wouldn't know what to do if it broke, but sometimes we ran.
You needed a first-class license in order to operate the transmitter. The third-class license was just to act as a studio engineer. Eric, you probably know that better than anybody. You worked for the FCC for a while.
Okay, there you go.
Hey, Jay.
Yes.
Talk about the 10 watts. This was a promo we did for it.
You're listening to the most powerful college radio station in the nation, WKDU FM, broadcasting now with 10 million microwatts of effective radiated power. Sound power.
Yeah, listening to WKDU is like listening to WIP or KYW. There's no difference, and I think that's the difference.
Tune in 91.7 and hear the difference, the powerful difference. WKDU, Philadelphia.
Only a double E can get away with that.
Yeah, I would think so. I can tell you at some point when I don't know who thought of it, it might have been me, but we came up with a logo of the free sound. Yeah, and you have it behind you there, Bill. I made the buttons up, so we had a whole bag of hundreds of buttons that we handed out on campus, and I ran across. Jay, I probably gave you that at the reunion. Found a bag of remaining buttons, so it's good to see the button.
Yep.
The free sound, because we had so many different formats, and we were free to do whatever we wanted within, of course, the FCC rules. But,
Well, yeah, and also we used the free sound, which was a great thing because we didn't have commercials. So
right, yeah, commercial free, and we had the free form because there was different formats. And we had who was the guy that did all the real, then it was oldies stuff back from the 40s and 50s.
Charlie Horner.
Charlie Horner, thank you, Bruce. Thank you.
Charlie's still around. He does. I'm connected to him on Facebook, and Charlie does. He does a lot of doo-wop concerts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Really? Wow.
It made a really wonderful career out of that, and still going strong 50 years later. Yeah,
that's amazing. That's amazing. It was a very interesting time to be around. Very interesting time to see the different formats that we were permitted to do. The one I did was, I guess they would have called progressive rock back then. I don't know what it would be called today, but took phone calls in. So take phone calls, and for the reach we do would react to people asking for things.
Well, the one interesting thing is that Drexel started and continues to be a completely student-run radio station. You turn on WRTI and they talk about Temple University, but I don't think there's one student that does anything there except probably read the news. It's basically a professional station. So that's what I think is really unique about our station, that we started carrier current, went to FM, and completely run by students. We had a faculty advisor, but that was just a technical requirement. It continues to be that way. And last night, we got a tour of the station. The station has moved. It's not up on the second floor anymore where we were. They've moved it down to the basement, I think where the triangle was in the bowling alley.
Right.
Yeah. They've got a larger spot down there.
Yeah, that was done in 76, 77 time frame.
Yeah. But what I was getting at, Bill, was and continues to be a totally student-run station, which is different than the majority, apparently, of quote school radio stations.
Well, you have college radio stations, and you have radio stations that are located on a college campus.
Mm.
Yeah, and I remember, I think it's WWFM up at Mercer County. The secretary basically had an order to shoot any student that walked across the doorway. They were not allowed in the FM station at all. And you look at like Cabrini and Rowan's radio station. Yeah, it's student, but it's really dictated by the management, if you will, which is, the hired guns there. So, KDU, it was unique and still is unique. So, as I say, total anarchy.
Ragtag bunch.
Pardon me?
Still around right now because what's also happening is that as universities are strapped for cash, what we've seen in the past 10 years or so is that a lot of college-owned radio stations have been sold to public broadcasters because the the universities just need the cash. And so for KDU to still be there and be a student-run organization is really kind of terrific because it's still student-run. As a matter of fact, they from what we learned last night, they still have the same trouble with funding that we did way back when. When we never had enough. We never got enough money from the student funds to really run the radio station.
Wasn't our budget like $5,000 a year? That's what they gave us, something like that.
I don't remember because obviously money was different back then. I don't remember what the money is, but here, scallywags from back then and what they do now. Now they actually, in order to get extra money, they do fundraisers. They print T-shirts and they sell them, and they do stuff like that. We basically, frankly, used to just rob from the rest of the school. I remember we were rebuilding the control room over that particular summer, and at the same time that Drexel was building a new building. I don't remember which one it was, but it was. Yes, it was Nesbitt. That's right, and they had labs there and stuff like that. And so one Saturday, we needed wiring and phone equipment and stuff like that. So one Saturday, I dressed up in a white T-shirt and bought a pack of Camels, even though I didn't smoke, and rolled it up in Rich Friedel, who was one of the engineers back then. Richard put on his glasses. He had his pocket protector, and we got some drafting, tat things, the rolled up stuff. And Dan Hopper, who was the general manager, Dan was our getaway driver. And so Dan drove us over in his station wagon to that building, and Richard and I showed up, and we knock on the door, and there's like a security guard. I mean, just like no gun, just the guy that was there. And he opens the door, and Richard says, "Lockhart Electronics, we're here to work on the equipment on the second floor." And the guy goes, "Oh, okay." So we go in, we go up the elevator, and we just start unscrewing, panels of electrical stuff, and we took a whole roll. I mean, one of those things on the wooden rolls, really of wire. We rolled it into the elevator. We went up to the shipping door. Dan pulled up in his car. We loaded everything in his car, and then we went back and wired the station. So we didn't really consider it to be stealing because we basically stole from the university to use it for university function. So we thought that was kind of okay. So we did things a little differently back then.
You reallocated resources.
Yeah. Fortunately, the statute of limitations is gone, so I think we're okay. So.
Yeah.
I remember when we rebuilt the station in, what was it, December of '73, we ended up with the old soda dispenser table as the console.
Wow.
Where did we acquire the KYW board that was used for at least most of the time I was there, the mixing board?
I think Eric was involved in that.
Yeah, it was an old console that we took and completely refurbished. I mean, we tore it apart and rewired everything inside the console. But when we needed money, we turned to WFIL boss jocks, John Wade, and we started having concerts, mixers in the activity center, and that's how we raised money to get what we needed.
I do remember that for one of the events, I got to drive the WFIL stage. The truck that had a stage folded down on it.
I get a mixer about every 6 months.
Yeah,
with John Wade, and we raised a good bit of money that way to buy the equipment we needed.
And we remember John Wade as take the money and run.
And John was good with us. He took very little money from us. They provided us with the posters and so on to put out, and we went to all the different colleges and a few of the high schools, I guess, and put out the posters, and that's where we got all the people to attend.
Bill Galhouse has started screen share.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Well, that's much later.
Yeah, that's much later.
Yeah, that's from November of '70. That one there is November of '70. After we became an FM station, one of the things we did for the 2 years I was there, and I know it continued on for a few years after that, is every September we used to do a marathon for charity.
Bill Gelhaus has stopped screen share.
We did the one we did, the first one we did, which was in '71. We did that one for the Kidney Foundation because pretty beloved on campus had died that summer of kidney disease. We did that.
Jay, you need to get a little closer to your microphone.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Kidney Foundation. Actually, Kidney Foundation was '72, but '71 we did one for Hemophilia Foundation because we had somebody on staff, a guy named Bob Strabula, who had hemophilia, and we just would. Myself and Ed London did all weekend. We did 4-hour shifts all weekend long to do that. And so, Alex, when you're talking about driving the WFIL double-decker bus, you may remember the two of us took that on the Friday night. There was a concert at the Spectrum, and we took it. The FIL lent it to us, and we took it down to the Spectrum to try to get cash from people that were leaving the thing for thing. And I remember Alex and I were driving down driving down the Schuylkill Expressway in this thing that we'd never driven before, double-decker bus, and then the sign came up something like clearance 8'7" or something like that, and we're like, we have no freaking idea. We're going 65 miles an hour. We're going to hit either we're going under that bridge or we're going to hit that bridge. But yeah, those were great. We did whatever we could. We got cooperation from
Bill Gelhaus has started screen share.
Another screen share. Oh, there we go. That's the 1972. That's me in the top picture. In the bottom picture, it's me, and on the right is Ed London. The engineer is Bruce Swist, and we did from the basement of. Gosh, I'm trying to remember. It might have actually been Nesbitt. I mean, I remember it was the one that was on the Market Street side of the quad, whatever building that was. We that's where we did our bottom, and you can see the remnants of that era. What were those the Shore mix there? You see the cart machine,
67s, and the twin cart,
and Bruce's flip cue on the record, just all makeshift and put together in our place.
Bill Gelhaus has stopped screen share.
Jay, I do remember for the first two marathons, we kept the score on a blackboard with chalk. If you think about the way the other marathons when we would get money and just change erase the chalkboard and put a new one up. I remember taking some photos and when I was engineering some of the sessions, but chalkboard.
So what's interesting as a college radio station, I think if you ask me what was the most unique thing about it, and what it was, it really was the people. Because now you got a whole bunch of folks in here on this call. Like I think everybody that's been on this call was either an engineer, either did engineering at the station, or did on air work. But we had a lot of folks that just liked the idea of being around a radio station. That it was like another student organization. They just did other stuff, whether it was administrative stuff or things like that. So it was more than just like belonging to a radio station. It was really like belonging to if you were joined any kind of club or whatever at the university. I know most people that went to college back in those days belonged to multiple clubs. I just loved the radio station personally so much that I belonged to the radio club, and some of the other members of the club used to have to kick me out of the facility in order to actually go to classes so that I could graduate. off of that. But that was one of the great memories. The one person who I think hasn't spoken yet, which I would love to get his memories, is Paul Keller. So Paul, tell us a little about what you did at the station and any memories that you might have.
Well, I was chief engineer from basically 1972 till I graduated in 76. I came in the fall of 71, and like a little puppy dog followed around the chief engineer there at the time, and then he flunked out after that term.
What was remember her name?
I don't remember the name. I don't remember his name now. But then winter term came and he had flunked out, and since I was the one who knew the most of what was wired where, I became the chief engineer and stayed that way. And that was an elected position, so I had to, like all the general manager, station manager, program director, all those, the rest of the group, voted who got to be in those positions, and managed to hold on to that for the rest of my time there.
That's cool. I remember that. So we took a tour of the station last night, and the station, I'm going to guess, has probably now 1,500 to 2,000 square feet, maybe even a little larger than that. We basically had the control room, as I recall. We had a little soundproof booth. Then there was the engineering lab, the music library, and a big common area. Is that pretty much what you remember, Paul? That's what our facility was like?
Yeah.
Common area was actually shared. We had the window for broadcasting, but we didn't have that room 100%. So if Drexel needed it for a meeting, they just pulled the curtain across the window and had a meeting. So really all we had was that small corner room with the broadcast booth and the storage area in the back that we use for engineering.
That's another upgrade that we got after you guys left, because they never did that.
Yeah, that's it. And then, we were next door to the APO fraternity office, and they had the Coke machine.
Yeah.
So we were able to go get sodas, and eventually we wound up with an office across the hall, which became my engineering office. And
interesting.
That was when they moved the dean of students office upstairs on the second floor, and took over a lot of the space.
That's I remember we were between that student organization and Hillel was on the other side of us on that floor. But what the most interesting thing about that was there that I remember was down the end of that hall, the university maintained a kind of a 1-bedroom suite for distinguished guests. And I got access to a master key to the Drexel Activity Center, and befriended, one of the things I learned early on, I befriended every single human being on the maintenance staff in the thing. And I used to get we get albums and stuff of 45s, and we get extras, and I would always give them stuff. And so basically, if I was working there late one night, was too tired to go back to wherever I was going, I'd go to them and say, look, I want to sleep in the suite tonight. That all right with you? When they go, yeah, fine, we'll straighten it out. And they'd come wake me up at 7:30 in the morning to make sure that I was gone. And the university gave that to us for the marathon weekends to actually really use. But that was a cool little spiff. My dog is sitting here very quietly wondering, where is that coming from?
Was that yours, Tony?
Belongs to my housemate, an 8-year-old cockapoo that, she's half Cocker Spaniel and half Poodle, actually, and half Tasmanian Devil. She's 8 years old. She's become my girlfriend.
So, hey, Bill. So, I mean, you're the big guy in the organization, but I mean, you haven't spoken much in this call you experience at the
Bill
state.
Gelhaus has started screen share.
Oh, there we go. Look at that. That Alan Darrow there?
Yes.
Oh, wow. With the old Scully machines, right? Are those the Scullys?
No, they were Magnacord. Well, the ones at the bottom were Magnacords, I think.
Yeah, one was an Ampex, I think.
Yeah.
Impact. That's right.
Ampex.
Impact.
Yeah, the top one looks like an Ampex.
Impex.
Then there was a Crown, if I recall
Yeah,
correctly.
I remember the crowd.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that was the only one we ever bought new.
The interesting
And
thing
that
about the
broke down all
Crown,
the time.
yeah, the interesting thing about the Crown was it was a Crown 800, but Crown never admitted to making mono electronics for it.
Wow.
So, because I worked for Barclay for a while, and they had brought it in, and it was like Crown goes, because it was a.
We had a call-in show and we needed to have a delay loop. Our way of doing the delay loop was we brought it in on one recorder and played it back on another recorder with a long loop between the two tape recorders. And that was our loop for editing.
That's right. Yeah, 4 second. 4 second. It was like a 4-second delay. Man, maybe on that. I remember when I first started back at WKD, we had the real monster large turntable that took like a turn and you get up to full speed. And sometime while I was there, we upgraded to the more modern turntables with it still wasn't the instant starts that I used later in my career, but it was closer to an instant start than a full turn and a half on an LP to get up to full speed. It was different time with the equipment. But anyway, Bill, talk a little bit about your time at the state.
I remember the first show. Why God's name I ever decided to do a 6 a.m. on a Wednesday, I don't know, but I came in, started to cue a record, and my hand was shaking so bad I thought I was going to kill the record. Fortunately, Vince, I think his name was Vince Coles, kind of grabbed the hand, took it, set it down, and was able to start. And that was actually kind of the start of me being phase 9 of the Black Experience of Music. Go figure that one out. Because during that summer, I was doing 10 to 2 Mondays, and it just, phase 8 ended at 10, and phase 9 started with my show. So that was kind of one of the more bizarre things. I also remember one of the first basketball tournaments, I guess we broadcasted in '73, someplace up in Connecticut, going up there. It was me, Tom Ascioli, our colored commentator, Tony Grover, I think his name was, and a guy from the Triangle. And it was the first time I flew, and it was the first time that the guy from the Triangle flew. I think they found every pothole between here and Boston that the plane could find. And it was like the day or the day after they dropped one into the lake up at Logan. So, and of course, the guy from the Triangle had the window seat, and he's scared crapless anyway. And he's looking out, and we're coming in, and this plane is sitting in the middle of the bay. And it took the three of us to literally pry him out of the seat and carry him off the plane. Thought we were going to have to pull the seat off. And then we get up to this gym, and they've got 2 phone lines, and we accommodated both of them, and one was a payphone. So the way we used to do it was you had the one with the broadcast on it, and the other one doing the cues. And every so often the operator would come on in the middle of something, and so yeah, it was an interesting first year. At the same time, we're rebuilding the studio and putting the McMartin board in. So it was a 3-ring circus that Christmas. So
the sports broadcasts were always a challenge back in the days. I just put up the assignment at the picture on Drexel. The first thing
Here, I'll bring it up on the screen or for the share.
And but they were all
share.
Oh, there we go.
so that's so the bottom right hand side is the assistant coaches and Steve Lilly, who was a player for years, and Barry Fick was the other guy for the Bombers. Lee, Bruce is standing. Lee said, that's broadcasting from the Palestra, but the sports broadcasts were always an adventure. I also, Bill, interestingly, my first airplane trip ever was also involving broadcasting Drexel Sports. It was in 1970. Drexel was playing Hampton, Sydney, Virginia, and flew from Philadelphia to Washington, and then Washington to Richmond, and then we had to drive an hour and a half to the thing. But that was my first time ever on an airplane. But there were so many interesting stories. I mean, the way
Bill Bellhouse has stopped screen share.
The way you used to do it back then is you would have to order your broadcast line ahead of time to be delivered to the location. Every once in a while, the broadcast line wouldn't work. They forgot about the order. They didn't show up. And I remember one time we were broadcasting a Drexel Lehigh basketball game, and Nolan and I did the play-by-play on a telephone handset that we handed back and forth to each other as we were doing the game, because the only thing that was there was a telephone. It was really, when you look at the way the industry is today, it was so different and so basic, and by today's standards, it was archaic. So I wonder if one of the things, we got about 10 more minutes. One of the things that would be interesting to do is maybe if I just go around the room and maybe take a minute and a half, and tell us what you've been doing for the last year and a half. So I'm going to go across my screen. Start with Bruce Wallach. So Bruce, what have you been doing for the last 50 years?
Last 50 years? I've been doing my logistics thing for the past 40 plus years, 45 years, whatever. I worked for the government for 26 years, retired from them, several other jobs, and now I'm working for a power company and managing inventory for them for about 13 different plants.
And you also participated, as I recall, once or twice when the current WKDU was doing some kind of alumni reunion. You actually did a show
about 10 years ago.
Yeah. So yeah.
The one thing that surprised me when I went down there to do that is almost the whole record library, shy of the 45s, were still intact. You walk in, there was a huge room of LPs dating back to when we were there and earlier. And one of the things that surprised me, you talk to some of them and you'd say, well, just to lay the groundwork, we were having record theft back in the day when we were all still there. So I had gone to a college radio conference and they were saying, oh, here's a way you can keep people from stealing the records. You drill an oversized hole for the spindle, then you have a special adapter made that you mount on the turntables. Okay, so we did that with some of the LPs and nobody wanted to take them, but we had the adapters and the turntables. Well, over the years, those adapters have long been gone and they never made new ones. So, the folks there nowadays have to center the record on the turntable and try to make it play right. So I go there, and I guess I was out of the school probably about at least 30 years out. And, surprised all the records are still there. And I said to them, do you still have the records with the large spindle holes in them? And the kids are going, yeah, that's terrible. Who the hell did that? And I was saying, me. Surprised they didn't run me out of the building at that point in time.
Next up on my screen is Alex, and I will guarantee you that everybody has been touched by Alex's career and his life. Alex, tell us about what you did.
Well, thanks. After Drexel, I went to work for Wawa, which is well known in Florida. Jay, I guess you're happy about that. I went to a couple of the companies, but spent the last 38 years doing real estate site selection for them and getting their stores built in 7 states. So if there's a Wawa near you, I probably worked on it or had something to do with it. I'm retired now for 5 years in Falston, Maryland, in Northern Maryland, up at the head of the Chesapeake Bay, and enjoying life. Bruce, I was there with you at the reunion. We got to meet guy from the Gong Show. Oh, I'm drawing a blank, but that was kind of fun at that reunion. Huh?
That was when we met Chuck Barris, wasn't it?
Yeah, right. Yeah, he was at the reunion weekend, I guess. Got to meet him there. But, that was a highlight of at least my WKDU memories. But I'm retired. I have 3 grandchildren, living life. But yeah, thanks, Jay.
You're welcome, Alex. And next on my screen is Eric.
When I graduated from Drexel, I started to work for the Friendly Candy Company down at 2nd and Chestnut. Moved on to work for, actually to start my own TV production company. It was E.J. Stewart. When I left there, I started working on a mobile unit for National Mobile Television. When I retired from there, I did a lot of freelance TV work. I've done a little bit until recently, but I also sell and service computers, and more importantly, I have a big setup with all types of old videotape recorders, anything from VHS and Betamax all the way through 2-inch quad. So I do all types of work like that, all types of copying digital formats. So if anybody needs something, I'm around. I've still got all those formats running.
Well, in addition to Bill and I, Eric is also a member of the Broadcast Pioneers, which, by the way, is a membership that's really open to anybody. It's not restricted. So if this has piqued anybody's interest that's either watching or is actually on this call, membership is open. Paul Keller.
Yep. I managed to stay in broadcasting for my whole career. After I graduated from Drexel, I wound up at WHYY TV and radio for 23 years, then went to WLVT TV in Bethlehem for 6 years, then spent 8 years with Harris Broadcast, and then 6 years with KYW TV. So I managed with all to stay, and then retired in September of 2019. So we're just getting situated with that. We bought a house last year in the Palm Springs area, which is where I am right now.
Good for you. Good for you. That Paul's also a dues-paying member of the organization. Alan Daroff, you're next on my screen.
Good morning. Actually, listening to a couple of you doing the football broadcast at RPI was my first airplane trip as well. And since I did the sports, Eric actually recruited me, become the engineer. Eric and Rich Gleick did the broadcast, and I did the engineering. That was my first flight. And exactly what you're saying, Jay, whenever we got to a stadium or basketball, trying to find a radio loop was the thing to do. There was also a big station reunion in conjunction with Drexel's 100th anniversary. And we had a very good turnout for that. And I donated a lot of that material to the Drexel archives. And in order to make sure that it stayed archived, it's hard to get accessible, but it is in the basement, I think, of the library. And I've told the station people currently a couple of times that it exists there. And that's what it was. Actually, this weekend is the Drexel Alumni Weekend, which is going to be done totally on Zoom. And hate to put in a plug, but my wife and I are being honored at the award ceremony on Sunday. She for 51 years and me for 50 years working as Drexel alums.
Awesome.
So that's kind of interesting. And they've been sending us different prizes. We got a bottle of champagne yesterday. We got beautiful Tiffany bowls. But the funniest one was we got this Drexel swag. And one of the things was the Drexel mask. And his Drexel timing is always perfect. It arrived the day after the CDC said we didn't have to wear masks anymore.
That's great.
But basically, I've retired for many years, and we have vacation homes in Florida and New Hampshire. And in Florida, I head the building committee, and I'm also a board member and also active in organizations here in Pennsylvania. But the background that I got working at the radio station and the memories are really good. And I have to say, I haven't seen Eric in many years, but I knew Eric before Drexel from Overbrook Park, and he basically recruited me to join the radio station. So everything I did from 66 on, basically, if it wasn't for Eric, I probably never would have found the radio station. So he's a big influence in what I've done.
And next on my screen is Tony. Just before Tony speaks, I want to just mention that Tony and I have a really special relationship. Actually, Tony, when we went FM, and Tony was off in the armed forces and living up in Seattle, Tony used to be my voice guy for my show. Tony did all of the liners for my show back then. But and Tony is also one of the foremost experts on the U.S. train system. So Tony, with all that, tell us a little bit about what you've been doing.
I did things like Here's Jay. We had a lot of fun with that. After the Army, I got a job at KING in Seattle, 50,000 watt rocker, thanks to Bill Gardner, who had gone from WIBG to King. I had a meteoric rise followed by an equally meteoric fall. And once that happened, I ended up doing information technology for 30 years in Los Angeles and in Seattle with large banks and health insurance companies. Retired in 2005, wrote a book called Who is John Galt? A Navigational Guide to Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, available at Amazon. Lived in a number of different places in the country, tried Georgia, went back to Washington State, came out of retirement in 2017 to be the executive director, paid executive director of All Aboard Arizona, and put a lot of work into trying to get a couple of players to put together a passenger rail line between Phoenix and Tucson. I-10 between those two cities was a horror. It was a good experience, and I got back into radio briefly. I was on KFNX on occasion as a guest talking about basically spreading the gospel of rail-based solutions to transportation problems. All the stuff I learned in radio at Drexel and even in Seattle came in handy because I learned how the art of public speaking, the art of working a room, keeping people's attention, and the art of working on the radio. When I was doing these things on KFNX in Phoenix, I never had a problem with the guy running the show. We just threw signs at each other. We had everything nailed perfectly. I could talk something up right to the very second. So that all worked very well. Unfortunately, the grant money ran out at All Aboard Arizona, and I got a call from a dear lady friend whom I've known since 1985. Suffered a stroke, lost her husband. She's in a wheelchair. So I'm on the Central California coast taking good care of her, treating her well. She's gained about 10 pounds since I've been here. I've gained even more. But yeah, radio was a very important thing for me. I would not have gotten to a lot of the places I got to in life without it.
Oh, thank you, Tony. You're good. You're a good soul. And last person on my screen is Bill Gallhouse.
Yeah, part of what I've been doing is working on archiving, and that's why we have things like this.
WKDU Solid Gold.
Yeah, and
Oh, that's Tony, by the way. That's awesome.
oops. Why doesn't it want to work? Come on, you.
WKDU Solid Gold. WKDU Hitbound.
And then you talk about live production numbers, and Paul maybe remember this one.
WKDU
Prehistoric. So part of my responsibilities with the Broadcast Pioneers is their archive, and these were all pulled from old air check tapes I had. Other than that, I've been in and out of broadcasting, in and out of computers. When I get tired of one, I jump to the other one. And in '94, the two of them collided head on with automation systems. And I'm still maintaining a 30-year-old Axis automation system, if anybody remembers that monster. And allegedly retired, but don't tell anybody because they won't believe you. So
That's awesome. And as for me, I fell in love with radio at WKDU and have spent my entire life in it. The 70s, I was a jock. I started at WCHE in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Did overnights at the old WRCP FM, 104.5 in Philly. Then went off to Rochester, New York, Syracuse, New York. And when I went to Rochester, became a program director and did that for about the next 10 years in Rochester, Syracuse. Was in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Spent 3 years back in Philly as the program director of WFIL. Then I went off to Buffalo, made the jump to being a general manager in Greensboro, North Carolina. I was supposed to be going, and then I went back to Rochester as a general manager, and then I was supposed to go to Detroit for a new company called Sherman Broadcasting in 1991, which was during the Gulf War. They lost their funding. They ended up in bankruptcy. They fired everybody at the corporate level except for me. I was a vice president, supposedly. And they were going to file bankruptcy, and the board of directors called me in and said, "Congratulations, you're now the president, CEO of the company." And I said, "Why?" And they said, "Because you have to be in order to sign these papers for bankruptcy." And so I learned a lot about the business side of the business, ran my own business after the Sherman Broadcasting thing, and then joined J-Corp Communications, which was at that time the third largest owner of broadcast stations. This was back in '97. I joined as a senior vice president, around about a third of the company. We were bought out by Clear Channel. I became a senior vice president at Clear Channel. Stayed with them for about 10 years. Then among the other things I've done over the past 10 or 15 years is I actually was the CEO of a Spanish broadcast company, owner of radio and television stations called Alumni Media Group. And I run my own company now where I basically outsource as a C-level executive. I have a company here in Florida. I had a company in San Diego, which I sold in 2019. Run another one out of Kentucky. And all in all, fell in love with radio so much that I've actually, at one time or another, touched more than 1,000 radio stations in all 50 states and over 200 different radio markets, from as large as New York to as small as Shelby, Montana. So it's been a really interesting and a fun ride, and it all happened because of the following, and it's true. My first year in college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I basically sat on the first floor of the activity center between classes and played pinochle in the game area. That's pretty much what I did. And then in April, there was a little ad in the Triangle, and it said WXDT is the play-by-play man is graduating, looking for a new play-by-play man. Come up to the radio station to apply. And I thought, well, this is interesting. I always liked sports. I did a little I used to hang out at a station in Trenton, New Jersey, where a guy did a sports talk show long before they became really popular, and pulled the wire copy for him. I thought this would be interesting. I walked into the station. I have no idea. Maybe I met Alan, maybe I met Tony. I don't know who it was, but I walked in and said, "Hey, I'm here to apply for the job." And they said, "Great, you got it." So that's how I joined the radio station. And then I just started doing a top 40 show and really fell in love with that. Decided I wanted to be the next George Michael, and then that was the history. But anyway, I want to thank everybody who joined. I really enjoyed it, especially following along with some of the chat stuff that has showed up on things. Some of the stuff we talked about. If anybody's interested, a number of people have jumped in with chats. For instance, we know from the chat that the station is now 880 watts, and a lot of stuff coming in with a lot of stuff. I hope we were able to entertain everybody for an hour. I want to thank everybody for joining. It was really great seeing a lot of old friends. I'm sure I haven't seen Paul Keller since the 70s. Bruce and Alex probably once in the last 25 years. I saw Tony about 10 years ago. The first time I've seen Alan probably since that same time. Back at they had a 40th reunion celebration back in 2011 on campus. So Bruce, Alex, great to see you guys. Great to see everybody. And Bill, thanks so much for choosing to do this and for setting it up. Hope everybody had a great time.
This is WKDU, the free sound of Philadelphia, leaving the air. WKDU operates on an assigned frequency of 91.7 megahertz under authority granted by the Federal Communications Commission. Studios are located at 3202 Chestnut Street with transmitter at Powelton and Spangler Streets in Philadelphia. WKDU is owned and operated by Drexel University. Tune in this evening when we resume programming.